The official ACC injury report is out for Miami at Florida State. The Hurricanes get some good news on two players who can play a major role in this rivalry game.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday. We made it. And this week has crawled. All of the anticipation, all of the excitement for Miami at Florida State. This has been the longest 2 weeks of my life because Miami comes off the bye week as well. I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and host of Postgame on the Hurricanes Radio Network. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. On this loaded episode, we're going to be joined later on by my paisan Phil Russomanno, going to talk about keys to the game and our prediction for this Saturday, 7:30 p.m. We'll talk about a pretty shocking statistic on Florida State's pass rush to this point, but let's dive into this injury report. So why are we seeing a Miami injury report for the first time this season? Because it's conference play now. You're not required to put out any form of injury report for non-conference games, but the ACC does require it. So here's what we're looking at, folks. You've got a number of players who are listed as out, but in Miami's case, it's primarily players who suffered season-ending injuries before the season started, so no surprises there. You've got 4 players who are questionable, notably linebacker Bobby Washington, defensive lineman Dalen Russell, who's one of the depth pieces at defensive tackle. It would be nice if he is available on Saturday because you'd like Miami to be able to have the full amount of players to rotate if need be. Wide receiver Chance Robinson is questionable, but 2 names who we haven't seen since the opening game, but are not on this injury report in any way, shape, or form are wide receiver JoJo Trader and running back Jordan Lyle. Now, here's what it means that they are not on the injury report. It means they are going to be fully available to play. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Donno, do you think Miami would even tell the truth? We're talking about Mario and injuries. All bets are off. No, they are going to be available to play because these conference injury reports, if they find out you lie about a player's availability on them, you can be severely fined for doing that. So, yeah, JoJo Trader and Jordan Lyle are going to be available on Saturday. But I cannot guarantee you whether either of them will start or how much either of them will play. But I do strongly feel that they are ready to go. In fact, we spoke with quarterback Carson Beck, the media. We spoke with him on Tuesday, and he said both of them on Tuesday made big plays in practice. So I guess my personal expectation, first I'll start with Jordan Lyle. I wouldn't be surprised, and he actually started the opening game against Notre Dame, but since he hasn't played since, I wouldn't be surprised if he's the third running back who gets into the game because Mark Fletcher and Marty Brown have both been playing at a really, really high level. So in that running back rotation, don't be surprised if Jordan Lyle is like the third man up, but I think he will play in this game. But I think Lyle, even if the touches are somewhat limited, I think he's one of the keys to unlocking this matchup for Miami's offense. So Florida State, as we know, gave up a higher than expected 211 rushing yards to Virginia last week. That was not on my bingo card. I thought they would hold them into the 100, something like that. But a lot of the success that UVA had and a lot of the vulnerabilities that Florida State has shown against the run have been to outside runs. And I think that's where, to me, theoretically, that's where Florida State's more vulnerable. Jordan Lyle being the quickest of Miami's top 3 running backs, being the guy who's the most explosive in space. I'm not saying Fletcher and Brown can't have good games on Saturday. I think they both can. And I do think Miami's offensive line is going to be the best one that Florida State has played so far. So if anybody can open up holes in the middle, it's Miami. But for exploiting those weaknesses on the outside on the boundary, Jordan Lyle would give you the best opportunity to do that. So do not be surprised if Jordan Lyle is the third running back up, but also don't be surprised if he can break off some explosive plays in this game. I think Lyle can be a really important part of this matchup. As far as JoJo Trader goes, yeah, I don't expect him to start. I mean, the starters so far this year consistently have been CJ Daniels, Keelan Marion, and Malachi Toney. I don't think that's going to change, but I think Miami is going to get others, including Tony Johnson, Ray Joseph, Josh Moore, who had a really big game against South Florida, is going to get in. And I believe JoJo Trader will also get into this game. Florida State, they feel better about their defensive backfield than other parts of their defense. And so I think if Miami can really mix up the looks that they give at wide receiver, and a guy like JoJo Trader, who, again, assuming he's 100%, because he doesn't appear on that injury report in any way, shape, or form, I think he's someone who can become an X factor in this matchup because he's someone who does practice really well. So these are players I expect to affect the game. If you look at the Florida State side of the injury report, I wouldn't read too much into the probables. Now, Miami didn't even do probable designations. They only have outs and they have questionables. So I know when people saw Florida State injury report, Miami fans are like, hey, Tommy Castellanos is probable. I think he's had, going back to, I think it was the Kent State game where he got a little hobbled before halftime and didn't return. He's had like a minor injury, but he played through it and played really well against Virginia. This is not going to affect Castellanos' availability whatsoever. And based on how well he played against UVA, I don't think it affects his ability very much, if at all. So I wouldn't read too much into FSU's quarterback being listed as probable on the injury report. He's going to play, and I assume he's fine. So I'm not worried about that one. But there are a couple of players who have been upgraded to probable on the Florida State side, including running back Roydell Williams. That one's notable. And Brian Smith of Locked On Seminoles told me he's heard really good things about Roydell's status and that he's going to play a lot, might even be their featured back on Saturday. And wide receiver Javen Boggs is someone that his status has improved. So that gives you another guy to think about. Of course, when you talk about Florida State wide receivers, the most dangerous one that gives Miami, at least in my perspective, the most concern is Deuce Robinson, who is not injured in any way, shape, or form. Deuce at 6'6" was the go-to guy against Virginia, has been Florida State's top receiver this year. That's going to be a difficult guy to deal with and a difficult guy to cover. But you got some good news there on Miami's injury report that Jordan Lyle does not appear. I think he's going to play. Same thing with JoJo Trader. Now, as far as which one I think is going to have the bigger impact on the game, my educated guess would be, because of the matchups, because of his explosiveness to possibly get to the outside and break a big run, I think Jordan Lyle is the guy who could have a bigger impact out of this game out of those two. But you guys know I'm really high on JoJo Trader. I think he's a great player. He's just, he's struggled to stay consistently healthy. But if he's healthy this weekend, giddy up. Let's go. We got a lot more coming up on this episode. We'll talk about an interesting stat on Florida State's pass rush so far. I'm going to answer questions from the Locked On Canes insiders. Multiple people have accused me of, this surprised me a little bit, but I've had to kind of revisit my comments over the last 2 weeks. People have accused me of being too harsh on Carson Beck, Miami's star quarterback. We will address. You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Folks, this episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, they move culture, and they keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward, folks, Mark Fletcher is the highest graded running back in the ACC to this point. Now, I mentioned my excitement for Jordan Lyle coming back, but Fletch is the guy who's going to be the bread and butter of Miami's running offense this week. And this matchup means a lot to him. Unfortunately, last year He lost his father right before the Florida State game. He talked this week about how, his faith in God and his teammates rallying around him have just helped him to be able to honor his father, helped him move forward, just like Mazda moves the game forward. And I'm just really, really excited to see what Mark Fletcher, who's a truly inspirational person, what he can accomplish on the field this Saturday in Tallahassee. This is a guy who constantly moves the game forward. And when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, friends, it is time for this weekend's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. The weekend is almost here, guys. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more money every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For your Miami Hurricanes, Ruben Bain has consistently delivered in a big way. He had 7 tackles, 10 quarterback hurries, a sack, a tackle for loss against Florida a couple of weeks ago. When the pressure was on, well, it was Ruben providing the pressure, and he came through, no hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, you know that performance wasn't a fluke. Ruben Bain is on a streak. And just like Ruben Hurricane Bain delivered for the Canes, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season. You could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period goes through November 18th. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you want to take your everydayer experience to the next level, click the link in the show description below and become a Locked On Canes insider. You get text messages directly from my phone to yours, one-on-one questions and answers, breaking news, recruiting scoops, show updates. You can try it free for 14 days. If you like it, you can opt in for $4.99 a month. Give you a lot of added value on there on the Locked On Canes Insiders chat. By the way, Hurricanes, I like this for road games. I know some people, everyone has their own favorite uniform combinations. The Hurricanes are going with the Stormtrooper tomorrow. Miami's going to be wearing the white jerseys over white pants, traditional white helmets. If you're going to play the villain on Saturday, go into Tallahassee and try to shatter their dreams, you might as well play up that villain role in the Stormtrooper look. So that's what Miami is going to be wearing this coming Saturday at Doak Campbell Stadium. In looking over my keys for Miami this Saturday, here's a statistic on Florida State that really stands out to me. So I think it's fair to say one of our keys for victory this weekend is going to be the offensive line protecting Carson Beck, giving him a clean pocket, giving him time to throw, which gives Miami's receivers more time to get open downfield. So Florida State this year has 0 defensive linemen with a pass rushing grade of over 70 on Pro Football Focus. Now, anything over 70 would consider good. Over 80 is really good. Over 90, which is Ruben Bain territory, is elite. Florida State does not have a single defensive lineman with over a 70 pass rushing grade. They've had a lot of trouble pressuring opposing quarterbacks without blitzing, whereas Miami, as we know, has been able to put pressure on opposing quarterbacks with their 4-man front. Now, of course, this week is going to be a different matchup against a quarterback who is so mobile and likes to run like Castellanos. So hopefully Miami can fence him in, can keep him in that pocket. But the Hurricanes pass rush, specifically from their defensive line, has been so much more effective than Florida State's. So with FSU having 0 D linemen over a 70 pass rushing grade, Miami theoretically should be able to keep Carson Beck's jersey clean, give him time to throw, give him protected. I'm excited about that. I think another key for the Hurricanes offense would be getting tight end Elijah Lofton involved again, as he was a little bit involved in the Florida game. I want to see that keep ramping up, and something Miami did do a good job of against Florida, specifically with Marty Brown, was getting your running backs involved with the passing game. And gosh, with Jordan Lyle being back, there are opportunities there with his quickness and space. And I say that, getting the tight ends and the running backs involved in the passing game. Florida State, they really like their defensive backs. I mean, Javari Rawls is having a really good season so far. I know Earl Little is somebody who struggled to tackle last week, but they're high on him as well. They don't feel great, though, Florida State, about their linebackers in coverage. So there could be matchups for Miami to exploit with their running backs and their tight ends in the passing game. I think we will see a lot of that. And I said this the other day, and I'll double down on it. This is the type of game where you need to take what the defense is giving you, right? If the defense is loading the box to try to stop your running game, you should be able to find success throwing the football. If they're taking away the deep stuff, Carson Beck cannot be shy about taking the checkdowns. You take whatever the defense gives you. Makes me feel good because Miami's offense is really versatile and really balanced. So I think Miami is going to be able to do that. We get this question from a Locked On Canes insider from the 727 who says, I can't believe that all you podcast guys still don't have confidence in Carson Beck. The guy's played in rain every game except for one this year. It's hard to throw a wet ball no matter who it is. This guy is a top 5 first-round pick at quarterback. And you know what? That's not the only comment that I've received over the last couple of weeks about me being hard on Carson Beck. And I just want to clear the air here. It's not my intention to pick on Carson. It's not. It's not my intention to give out anyone the belief that I don't have faith in Miami's QB1. I think what's happened over the past couple of weeks, remember, we haven't played since the Florida game was. In that Florida game, and there are numerous reasons for this, not all of them were Carson Beck's fault, by the way, the passing game, that includes Carson, it includes his receivers, it includes the rhythm of Miami's offense. It also includes Florida having, really effective defensive backfield for frustrating opposing quarterbacks. But Miami's passing game was out of sync against Florida, and we've had 2 weeks to talk about that. We haven't seen them play since the bye week. So I don't want anyone to think that I'm a Carson Beck hater or a Carson Beck doubter. I thought that through the first 3 games where he was superb, I thought I emphasized that. I thought I was really high on the guy. So please, I don't want anyone to think that I'm off the Beck train or anything like that. And you know what? I think Carson Beck, not only because he plays the most important position in football, but for other reasons, he's going to be Miami's most important player heading into Doak Campbell Stadium, because that guy, with his experience in the SEC, has faced every possible hostile road environment. So if there's anyone who's going to be able to get his teammates ready for the sort of hostility that they're going to face at Doak on Saturday, Carson Beck is someone who can keep his guys calm, right? So he's going to be extra important. And listen, again, passing game, and it wasn't all him, was out of sync on Saturday, or 2 Saturdays ago, I should say. But also 727 brings up a good point. Miami's had to play in rain basically every game this year. I think the Bethune-Cookman game is the one where it wasn't raining the whole time. So, yeah, we're not expecting rain in Tallahassee. The last weather report has it like 20% or less. There could be some wind gusts, though. Our friend Raymond, G.A. Kane fan, who he checks the weather like constantly, and he was telling me there could be wind gusts there this weekend, but we don't think that rain is going to be an issue. So I have full faith and confidence in Carson Beck to go out there and win this football game. I don't want anyone to think otherwise. We get this one from Steve in Port Orange, who says, hey, how does our run and passing game match up with Florida State's defense? Do we have a decisive advantage in either or both? I've already broken this down quite a bit, so I'm not going to dwell on this too much. But so Florida State, I think their passing defense has looked better than their rushing defense overall. So that's not going to be an easy matchup. Their pass rush, though, as we mentioned, has not been good without blitzing. I think Miami's offense should theoretically be able to give Carson Beck a clean pocket and time to throw. Florida State's rushing defense got gashed for 211 yards by UVA. Their tackling looked soft, but they might load the box, so I could see Miami getting more opportunities to throw. I think it was our friend Calvin Harris who said this when he was on with us on Tuesday, that maybe Miami comes out throwing the football early. That way you make FSU's defense a little more honest, and then you can establish the running game late. No matter how the game starts, we all know how we would like the game to finish. We'd like Miami to have a lead, whether it's a big lead or a small lead in the fourth quarter, and then you can lean on Fletcher, Brown, Jordan Lyle, Miami's offensive line to break that defense with that pound town. Let's pound the football. That's how we want the game to end. That's crystal ball football. So hopefully it plays out that way where Miami does have a lead, whether it's a 3-point lead or a 30-point lead, that you can lean on your running game late in the game because that's what wears defenses down. So that would be my hope. Quick note from the sports books. So the Hurricanes for most of the week have been favored by 4.5. They're still favored by 4.5 points on Saturday, but I saw a report yesterday that Miami at -4.5 is the most bet on side of the weekend in college football. So, hopefully the sharps, the people who, make the big plays, the big money, hopefully the sharps know what they're looking at here. If they're betting on Miami -4.5, they think that there's value on that. So keep that in mind. All right, we're going to talk with my paisan, Phil Russomanno, get his prediction, his keys to the game when we come back. Miami Hurricanes in Tallahassee tomorrow night, number 3 against number 18, 7:30 p.m. in prime time. We cannot wait, and we're not done talking about it here on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Guys, Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors. This is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. Guys, the swivel screen is a game changer. You can go from running on the Tread Plus to strength training without missing a beat. And the personalized class recommendations keep you engaged. You get workouts tailored to your vibe and energy level every week. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen. For your next listen, make sure you check out Locked On ACC. Kenton Gibbs and I, and sometimes Jackson Holzer, take you through all the big events, all the big games in the ACC. Of course, spent a lot of time this week talking about Miami at Florida State. We will continue to do so here with my paisan, Phil Russomanno, Miami MBA, Triple Cane, and Phil is going to be in enemy territory on Saturday. Are you excited, Phil, to step into those uncomfortable bleachers at Doak Campbell Stadium?
I am. It's a little bit different than last time I went to an away game. I went to the Florida game last year. So switching it up and going to Tallahassee this time is going to be a good time.
Well, what was your experience like at the Swamp? Because I was in the press box. So, or were you in the press box as well, or were you in the seat?
Yeah, I was in the press box. It was cool that it's like open concept there because I know like at like Hard Rock, you kind of have like the windows there. So in Gainesville, you kind of feel like the electricity a little bit more. So really cool experience. Then it got quiet for obvious reasons.
Yeah, it sure did. And hopefully history repeats itself this Saturday. All right, so you take a look, Phil, at this matchup. What do you see as the keys for Miami to pull it out in Tallahassee?
So I honestly think it starts with the defense in this game. As we know, Gus Malzahn's going to do a lot of different things with the running game for Florida State. So it really is important that our edges and our linebackers really fill in those running lanes. Make sure Tommy Castellanos can't really evade pressure in the backfield and take a lane that was open. So making sure he's in the pocket's really important for success, I would say, in this game on the defensive side.
What about on the offensive side?
On the offensive side, it's really just do what you're good at, I would say. You can tell Alabama was a little rattled in that first game, and you're starting a quarterback for the first time, and you can tell the moment like really was big for him. Luckily for us, we have a quarterback with a lot of experience and who's been in hostile environments a lot. So it's one of those kinds of things. Just do what we're good at. Our offensive line's elite. Make sure that you're running through the lanes that you're supposed to, and make sure that you're not trying to do too much. And if you stick to the script, you should be in good business throughout the game.
We discussed at the top of the show, Miami put out their injury report. And just so people know, obviously, college coaches, Mario included, are not always that reliable with injury information. But when it comes to these official ACC injury reports, you can't flat out lie because they will fine you if you lie. So we got notably Jordan Lyle, JoJo Trader are not listed whatsoever on the injury report. Carson Beck told us this week they were both making plays in practice this week. I would imagine just based on the flow of these first 4 games, probably neither of them will start, but I think both of them will play. Who do you think could be the bigger X factor in this game between Jordan Lyle and JoJo Trader?
That's a good question. I think it could go either way with that, but I would say that Jordan's going to have a really good opportunity in this game, just because if you're like really leaning throughout the entire game with your offensive line and running with the bigger backs with Fletcher and Brown, if you're able to switch it up with the Jordan Lyle and he gets to an open lane, he really can take it to the house. So that'd be really exciting to see after more so of like a slower kind of grind for the last 4 weeks. But this week you really have a home run hitter, which we really haven't had yet this year.
Yeah. We look at a couple of guys on Florida State's offense who, could give trouble to anyone in the country, Miami included. You mentioned Castellanos, what Miami needs to do to defend him. Wide receiver Deuce Robinson has, been outside of Tommy, the best offensive player at Florida State with his length. How do you think Miami deals with him?
I think that we have corners that can match up pretty well with Lucas and Frederic. I would prefer to see Lucas on him just because of his size, I would say. But in that situation, it'd be a good thing just to make sure that you're really covering if we're playing zone, making sure nothing leaks through. But I know that Gus Malzahn's offenses really do target one receiver, like instead of like our Miami offense that spreads the ball around. With Florida State, if you're the number one receiver, you're going to get a ton more targets. So making sure he's kept in check is extremely important too.
Well, what's been your progress report 4 games in on Carson Beck? I mean, people, some of my Locked On Canes listeners have accused me of being a little hard on Beck, but it's like, I guess it's because we've had 2 weeks to talk about the Florida game where, the passing game just wasn't really in sync in that game. But like, I'm really high on Beck, and I think he's going to be so important in a matchup like this when it comes to his experience against hostile road teams.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I agree with that too. Like a lot of it, and I know it's like one of those things to make an excuse, but it has been torrentially downpouring for every single game this season.
Yeah, bingo.
So he can throw in the rain, but at the same time, if your running game and your offensive line's as good as ours has been, there's really no point to put the ball in harm's way. And I thought Dawson did a good job with explaining like the game plan for the Florida game. Like they know that their offense was struggling. There's really no point for us trying to make mistakes that can get them back into the game. So for this week, I'm hoping for no rain for obvious reasons, but also too, I think that having JoJo Trader coming back is going to be also really important too for Carson Beck, just to have another guy that can have the ball get to him.
All right, I've gone on record, Phil, this week with my prediction. I'm going 31-23 Miami, and I do think that having the power running game is going to help Miami close this game out with a lead. Hopefully they are leading in the 4th quarter. They're able to do that. Do you have a prediction for number 3 Miami at number 18 Florida State?
So I do, but I'm also superstitious as well. So in the first game for Notre Dame, I said that we were going to win, but I didn't say what the score was. So in the same fashion, I'm going to continue by saying I think Miami's going to win this game, and I think they're going to cover too.
Okay. Yeah, and we're looking at Miami favored by 4.5. And I saw a note yesterday from one of the sports books that allegedly Miami at -4.5 is like the most bet side of the college football weekend. So let's hope those sharps know what they're doing in this case.
Yeah.
Well, Phil, let people know, because I'm sure with you being in Tallahassee this weekend, you're going to be sending out some goodies on your social media. Let people know where they can find you and follow you.
Yep. So you can follow me on Twitter at psizzle22684.
I mean, I at one point, I want you to show up here one week, and the Twitter is just a nice, clean Phil Russomanno. Like, I want you. I'm going to call Elon if I have to, and like allow him to change your handle, because there's none of this. That was like my screen name on AOL in 7th grade. Something like it's like something I would come up with then. You got to fix that.
Yeah, it's back from my playing days. I used to play linebacker, like a linebacker, punter, and kicker at the time. But my favorite player was Terrell Suggs, and he was T-Sizzle. So they called me P-Sizzle on the team. So
that makes sense. So to be honest, were you better at punting or linebacking?
Oh, punting and kicking for sure.
I mean, the Italian heritage. I mean, it
yeah.
had to be. It had to be. You know what? We should have lined you up a couple weeks ago, College Game Day, when that and the thing. I don't like how, because it happened the week after as well, how like they'll select the student to kick and then they bring in a ringer. They're like, oh, I've got a friend who's like Hispanic or Italian who plays soccer. But even like the Miami guy brought in his alleged Italian ringer from Maine, and the guy still missed the kick twice.
Oh, they iced him on that. They iced him
Yeah.
big time on that. I know my group
Yeah.
chat for my NBA, they were like, oh man, we wish you were kicking right now. We'd be eating good tonight.
That's what I'm talking about. See, we needed Phil out there. Well, the next time college game day comes, I want to make sure, although since you're no longer a student, I guess maybe you're no longer eligible. But if they select somebody, bring Phil as your ringer, because they seem to allow the students to delegate to someone else to make the kick. So yeah, make sure you check him out with his ridiculous Twitter handle. Thanks so much to Phil. Thanks so much to all the everydayers. By the way, we're going to be back for another episode later today with the postcast king, our man Grease, who'll give his pregame thoughts on Miami at Florida State. So we'll talk to you then on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.